Hey, this Ramon channel is Alpha 4. Today I'm going to talk about Altered Carbon. It is very long, and I don't mean it's long just in the sense of length. There are several times in the storytelling that the story could have ended. The writer could have come to a conclusion. When it comes to both the Netflix series and the audiobook, I don't think one's better than the other. I think they complement each other very well. I think the show does a few things better than the book does, developing the character of Christian, the way that the sex scenes flow is better. The relationship between Kuwagara and the main character, on the other hand, I don't think was handled better in the series. I think it was actually handled better in the book. Also, there's a few inconsistencies in the book that in the TV show are just ironed out and they're threaded together much better. Now, I don't know if that's because if later books in the series fill in those gaps and then the TV show just takes from that, or is just the TV writers trying to fix a problem. Either way, the show does do some things better than the book. On the other hand, when it comes to fleshing out the world, when it comes to understanding what a meth is and how it is very rare to have more than one recycled turn, when it's speaking about the philosophical and metaphysical questions about who's in control of the body or the soul, the mind or the heart. All that stuff's handled much better in the book. In the book, there really is a question of, okay, is the body of Riker in control, or is the mind of the main character in control? And you don't know. It's only really when you get to that scene where he's in an artificial body versus Riker's body, and they're talking to each other. In the TV show, it's a clone, but in the book, it's a artificial body, and they're talking to each other. That's when you really get to see how much of the character that you were enjoying wasn't really Kovacs. It was actually Riker, which is really cool because the next book in the series completely changes a lot of things about the book, and it's a whole new story. So by doing that, you're establishing a character, but you're giving him room to change and grow if you continue the series. So I thought that was very excellent and handled much better in the book. So sometimes the series is going to be driven by plot. In this book, that doesn't happen. It's not driven by plot, which is actually a complaint against the book. The book does drag on. There's like two or three sections in the book where you can really see the author is just writing a scene. He just wanted to write a scene. He didn't really care what it had to do with the rest of the story. Did I enjoy Altered Carbon, the book? Yeah, it was fun. It draws in ideas from the rest of cyberpunk, and it uses those ideas excellently, amazingly. It takes things from all three of the novels that I read before this one, and it puts them into a new story. From the 4 novels now that I read of cyberpunk, you kind of get an idea of what cyberpunk is. You need to have a good guy who's reluctantly good. He's not an anti-hero. He's definitely a protagonist, but only reluctantly so, and naively so. He has to be naive about his world. And I'm saying he very particularly because there's another character that should be a femme fatale, but ends up taking over the novel at some point. Kristen, the girl in Hardwired, the android in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. All these characters become the driving force of the story for a little while. And that's important because if you don't have that turn, it's not really cyberpunk. Also, drug use. Drug use seems to be very important in cyberpunk. It's a glorification of a subculture. And you gotta have computers, you're gonna have mind jacking, you're gonna have all this kind of stuff going on. Do I like the genre of cyberpunk now that I've now read 4 books of that subgenre? I don't know. I'm not really sure because I love cyberpunk movies. The movies that are cyberpunk I find incredibly interesting. Even the bad ones like, you know, Cyborg versus the great ones like Blade Runner. Like, yeah, there's something there. And I love cyberpunk video games. And I do now, after having gotten into it, still think that Detroit Become Human is a cyberpunk video game, although it's missing some of the tropes of the genre. That being said, I love a lot of the movies that are in cyberpunk. Yeah, so if the new game Cyberpunk is not just drawing from the board game, but also drawing from the movies and from the books that surround the genre, and not just specifically the stuff tied into Cyberpunk the board game, I think Cyberpunk the game can be amazing. I think it can be the next Witcher. On the other hand, if they're just drawing from the board game and they're not going to use the informative development that's occurred in the genre, because this board game is very old. So if they go back to the original tropes and they're just exploring the original tropes, those tropes get very boring. There's a reason why cyberpunk's not a bigger genre in popular fiction. It's just not as popular as it should be, especially with YouTube and the internet and people living a life that looks like a cyberpunk dystopia. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic. We are in the middle of the exact stories that are told in cyberpunk, and yet the genre has not had a resurgence. So I do think that there is some chance that this game on story alone could suck. I do. But do I have a better idea of what to expect in the game now that I've read 4 cyberpunk novels? Yeah. I mean, I've watched Cyberpunk, I've now read Cyberpunk. I'm interested. I'm invested. I hope that the video game is good. I really like Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon, the Netflix series. Watch the first season, second season, you can skip it. Altered Carbon, the book, read it, listen to it, whatever, however you want to get it into your head. It's worth the read. Do you need to read all the cyberpunk stuff leading up to it? Nah, you don't have to do what I did. Does it help? Yeah, it helps inform the characters and their decisions and makes the story make more sense. Anyway, peace, like, and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this review. And when Cyberpunk the game comes out, hopefully I will do a video on that.